Welcome back to our public assurance meeting on bringing offenders to justice. This is all about your voice. Residents from across Derby and Derbyshire have submitted questions for the Chief Constable, and today we'll be putting a selection of those to her directly. Thank you to everyone who took the time to get involved. Your input helps shape the conversation and drive accountability. Some of the questions submitted require further casework, and we'll be responding to those in writing. As part of my commitment to bringing offenders to justice and supporting victims of crime, I chair Derbyshire's Criminal Justice Board and work alongside all the criminal justice partners that make up our criminal justice system. I also place a strong emphasis on safeguarding those who find themselves in police custody through an independent custody visiting scheme, which I oversee. This scheme is a statutory requirement and is made up of trained volunteers from our local communities who carry out unannounced visits to our custody suites, providing independent oversight and assurance around all the work that we're doing and the treatment and welfare of detainees. An annual report summarizing the ICV activity through 2024 and 2025 includes the number of visits and any causes of concern and examples of good practice as well. The report is currently being finalized and will be published later on this year. But today, I'll be asking the Chief Constable, Rachel Swan, about the issues you've raised, starting with an overview from Assistant Chief Constable James Abdy. He leads on criminal justice for the force here in Derbyshire and will be sharing the work that the constabulary is doing to ensure that the force are bringing offenders to justice on behalf of our communities. So let's begin. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's really important for us to be able to shed some light on some of the work that you guys are doing here at the force in regards to bringing offenders to justice. So if you could tell us a bit more about the work you are doing so that the residents can get some insight on that, we'd really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I'll start really just by giving you an overview of the sort of 8 priorities and objectives that we are working towards. And in this, really just talk through what our plans are, what progress that we're making. But before I sort of get into that detail, what I would want to say from the outset is that bringing offenders to justice is absolutely central to our mission. It's one of our key priorities, and we work really, really closely with the Crown Prosecution Service and other partners in pursuit of that aim. Internally, we govern this through different processes. So I chair a Victim Crime and Vulnerability Board on a regular basis. And the Deputy Chief Constable as well maintains oversight of performance through our monthly public accountability meetings. So that's how we check on progress and activity against this really, really important priority. But if I just sort of briefly talk you through the 8 objectives and some of the activities and work that we're doing and the impact that that's starting to have. So the first one really is around strengthening criminal justice partnerships. And our objective here really focuses on timely, effective delivery and supporting the wider criminal justice system to ensure that both victims and offenders are managed effectively through that process. But we do that in a way which is strong through our partnerships. And in support of that, we have the Criminal Justice Board,
Yes,
which you chair, which is a great mechanism for having those sort of strategic conversations around issues. But supplementing that, we also have a joint operational improvement meetings, and we've enhanced that as well further by some developments, such as the introduction of a working group at a more operational level, so we can work through issues that we identify. Other subgroups that we have that support that are the Reducing Reoffending Board, the Women and Girls Steering Group, a Victim Improvement Board, and a Neurodiversity Task and Finish Group. And all of these contribute to the delivery of the broader plan around improving outcomes for victims, making sure offenders are brought to justice, and trying to make sure that as a criminal justice system, we operate as effectively as is possible. We also work closely with youth justice teams, and we've embedded officers in both local authority areas. This has helped us to maintain low levels of first-time entrants coming into the system. So we had 6 in May of this year, 4 new entrants into the system in April, 6 in March 2025. So actually new entrants into the criminal justice system is relatively low, which is a positive. Nationally, we still have pressures and challenges, the issues around court backlogs, prison capacity issues, and delays in listing serious cases in the Crown Court, such as rape and serious sexual offences, clearly bring challenges for us. but we manage the impact on victims and those demands through our witness care unit. Despite some of those challenges, what we do know that is performance is improving. So, for example, we know that the sort of median time to outcome in our cases has reduced from 75 days to 49 days, and that was sort of Q4 in 2020, we were at 75. So we know we're getting quicker in terms of trying to bring cases to an outcome. The time to charge, that's improved from 83 days to 60 days. And our conviction rates in the magistrates' court are around 85%, and in the Crown Court are in excess of 80%. So we are improving performance in that area, notwithstanding the remains challenges that we need to work on. Moving on to case file quality, again, one of our key priorities. In November last year, we introduced a specific project designed to raise investigative standards. That's overseen through an investigative standards board. And within that work stream, there are a number of priorities, but one of them is around improving file quality. We've expanded our case file progression team, and we've introduced first triage, which has resulted in around 78% of cases that we submit to the Crown Prosecution Service leading to a charge, which is in line with the national average. We've also sought to strengthen our analytical capability to identify trends in that space. And as I mentioned earlier on, created the working group at a more operational level, chaired by one of our detective chief inspectors, which really helps to drive that operational collaboration with the Crown Prosecution Service. And the impact of some of that work is seen that our first triage acceptance rate, so when cases are submitted to the Crown Prosecution Service, has increased. So we're getting more cases in early, and they're being accepted. And then in Q4 of 2024, we saw that 87% of cases resulted in a completed trial or a guilty plea, which was above the national average of 82%. So again, we are definitely stepping in the right direction.
I know when I first started with the Criminal Justice Board, that was something that we were talking about in terms of case file quality. So the fact that we're moving in the right direction and there are clear improvements, I think definitely gives me confidence, and I know will give residents confidence. When you spoke a lot earlier, there were some of the things that you mentioned in regards to waiting times with courts and the prison system pressures as well. Some of those sit outside of policing responsibility and our remit as well, which can be a challenge, because I'm sure when residents are frustrated at whatever point of the criminal justice journey they're on, that they come back to the police as their first point of contact to reflect that. How would you say the witness care team are dealing with that, coping with that? Because it must be quite challenging, because some of the waiting isn't due to only what the police are doing.
Yes. I mean, it is a challenge for us. We monitor that through our internal governance to make sure that we have the resources to meet the demand and to make sure that we continue to give good levels of service to victims. And we are also looking at and developing new ways of working to assist in keeping victims updated. So we introduced a new victims app to keep victims updated. And we also are looking at a solution around some technology to do more face-to-face contact with victims as well within our criminal justice unit. So all of those things are designed to really assist us to provide the ongoing support to victims, notwithstanding it presents a challenge for us, and will do for the foreseeable future, which is why it is really important that we continue to work in partnership around these issues to manage the impacts on victims and bring offenders to justice in a more timely manner.
Definitely.
Moving on just to the sort of third priority, which is around enhancing investigative standards, which builds into the work I mentioned earlier on. We've made some changes to our crime allocation policies to make sure that the cases are going to the right resource, and we maintain high levels and improving levels of investigative standards. We're investing in frontline officers through training, and also for our sergeants and supervisors, first line supervisors, we're piloting a national what they call a PIP1 supervisors program with the College of Policing. And we supplement that with regular audits and reviews around the activity to make sure that we continue to maintain improving standards. We still have challenges around capacity and demand in some specialist areas, such as rape and serious sexual offences, management of sex offenders, online offending against children. They are challenging areas, but again, we manage those demands within our crime directorate. But we also look to provide support to our staff that are working in those teams, such as Post Point, which has been introduced to support people working in rape and serious sexual offences, and other sort of services that are available there, such as structured professional support, psychological surveillance, and regular welfare check-ins with individuals. But all of that taken together, what we are seeing in terms of investigations is that since 2021, 2022, again, we've continued to move in the right direction. Our positive outcomes in relation to crime overall has increased from around 13.9% to around 17.8% in June this year. So we are making incremental gains, notwithstanding some of the challenges. Moving on to victim support and communication, a number of developments for us in this area. We really value and welcome feedback from victims and maintain oversight of that data. We've also done a lot of training to around 700 officers between December 2024 and March of 2025 on the Victims Code and the importance of victim needs assessments. We, at the moment, seeing our completion rates for victim needs assessments around 65%. We know we've got more to do to improve in that space. And some of the advancements in technology, what I mentioned earlier on, are things that we're trialling and testing to see how we can continue to give good service to victims and offer that support throughout. The impact on that from a victim's perspective, when you look at some of our satisfaction data, in April 2025, we saw that about 82.4% of victims were satisfied overall. That compared to about 67% in May 2024. And an area which we know is a challenge for us, keeping people informed, did increase to around 60.8% in April from sort of 50.6% in May. So it's an area where we've got more to do. But again, we're seeing improvements in important areas which we are seeking to focus in on.
No, definitely, because that area of work around keeping victims updated is something that does come up when I'm out and about talking to residents as well, how important that is, because sometimes the outcome of that journey isn't exactly what they hoped it would have been.
Yeah.
And so actually having that communication and consistent communication is really helpful at what can be a really traumatic time. So it's reassuring to hear that it's better than where it was. Is that because of a real focus from the force? Is that use of technology? I know you've mentioned a few things. It's a combination of both. I think it's just something that, like I say, whenever you're going through a really traumatic time, and often in some of the cases and areas of business you've mentioned just now, you can imagine wanting to know what's going on is really important. Yeah,
it is a combination. We maintain the focus on it. We have the data. We maintain the focus through our governance meetings. But as I explained earlier on, you just alluded to there, the Victims app, for example, means that officers now that may be working during the night and wouldn't want to contact a victim in the early hours of the morning, through the technology are able to send an update so that it arrives at a more convenient time. So the more we can embrace the technology and make better use of it, the more we can provide a service that meets the needs of victims. Moving on to preventing offending, we continue to prioritise early intervention, education and restorative approaches. We're doing lots of work around hotspot policing, immediate justice. We've introduced a new prevention and partnerships command, and that's going to have a youth engagement officers that's embedded in there. We have a whole programme of work around preventative education in primary schools, secondary schools, and through the Serious Violence Partnership as well. There are a number of interventions that are available, such as, and I'll not go through them all, but Hope Hike, which is sort of workshops for 13 to 25-year-olds, Walk Away campaign, which is more targeted towards males 18 to 30, I should say. In Chesterfield, we have a vulnerability hub on a weekend, which includes local authority staff, paramedics, street pastors, and a number of other different intervention programs that are out there to provide that level of support and prevent reoffending. We continue to manage a large cohort of offenders through our integrated offender management program. and we make use of the idiom data system, which provides us information on reoffending data. And in support of that as well, we've used funding that's been provided to do voluntary GPS tagging as well. Again, all designed to assist in pursuit of that objective of reducing reoffending. Objective 6 is focused around shaping the criminal justice system through the victim's lived experience. And again, victim feedback is really, really important to us, and we get that in different ways. We do telephone and online surveys. We've developed business intelligence dashboards to provide that information to us so we can help to shape our services. We are now including QR codes on some of our victim contact letters, and we work closely with your office to make sure that we understand the voice of the victim, and we try to use that to help shape our services going forward. Moving on to sort of more broadly, sort of laws and justice reform nationally, we continue to work with the National Police Chiefs Council and national leads where we need to. There are new areas of legislation that will assist us in pursuit of this objective. So the Victim and Prisoners Act 2024 brings new requirements around the Victims Code and victim contact, and the Crime and Policing Bill as well, which is due to be enacted hopefully later this year or early 2026. Again, brings in additional powers as well around social behaviour, knife crime, protecting retail workers, strengthening safeguards around child abuse and exploitation, and enhanced protection for victims in relation to violence against women and girls. So there's developments nationally which again will assist in pursuit and achievement of this important priority. And then that moves us on to Objective 8, really, which is again about reducing reoffending through out-of-court disposals and restorative justice, and putting this in the context of the wider challenges in the criminal justice system, some of the delays in the court systems, that actually the out-of-court disposals and restorative justice provide an opportunity to have more timely, effective, proportionate justice for victims, and to ensure that's proportionate in terms of a way of dealing with the offender. Between June 2024 2025, we had just under 5,000 out-of-court resolutions which were issued. They make up about 5.7% of positive outcomes overall. You know that there's more to do in that space. And in terms of immediate justice, which was sort of introduced in 2023, we've done around 1,260 referrals, with about 69% not reoffending. So again, we know that these solutions and interventions can assist in reducing offending. We also work closely with Remedy and with Red Snapper around those specific interventions. And since April of this year, we've got 3 full-time officers that are placed in our out-of-court resolutions hub, overseen by a sergeant who's also focused on youth justice and forms part of the new Prevention and Partnerships Command, which I sort of alluded to earlier on.
Yes.
So I think bringing all that together, in summary, I think it's fair to say that we are making sort of measurable progress and improvements to bring offenders to justice in a more timely, proportionate manner. Our conviction rates remain relatively strong. We're improving the timeliness of getting cases charged, and we're maintaining low levels of new first-time entrants within the sort of youth justice system.
Yes.
Case file quality is starting to improve. We're making better use of technology overall, and we really are investing in prevention and intervention and expanding our use around out-of-court resolutions and restorative justice to reduce that level of offending. So all of them things taken together, I hope provides the reassurance to the public and to you, Commissioner, that this is a really important priority for us. We're going in the right direction. We know there's more to do. We have plans around the areas that we know we need to focus in on.
Yeah. I think definitely in this space, when the residents said this was an area that they wanted me to focus on, what it told me was that people felt really tired and wary. And what I felt really from some of that feedback was just around, well, what's the point? You know, when you listen, you look at the challenges, obviously there's a lot of things that we are doing, and it's hard to often shout about the really great stuff that's happening and the progress when people really experience the negative side of the challenges in the criminal justice system across all partners. You know, I think it's a challenge for us all in this space, which is why when we sit at the Criminal Justice Board, we're always trying to work together to make the process as easy as and as smooth as possibly we can for the victims navigating what can be a really distressing and complex space. But for me, it was really important to acknowledge that, you know, people are feeling a bit tired and actually thinking, well, if you don't feel confident in the criminal justice system as a whole, regardless of all the different parts that the partners play, what's the point of reporting? What's the point of calling? And so I guess I feel very reassured that there's a lot of things happening in this space. But what would you say to residents who think, well, I'm not going to report that because nothing ever gets done? Or, you know, we know a lot happens behind the scenes, but it doesn't necessarily, the perception of some of the things don't always meet together in the middle. So I guess with your own parting words, what would you encourage residents to do despite the challenges we face? And obviously, in regards to all the work that we are doing, what would your parting words be?
So I think in closing from me, I would encourage victims to have the confidence to make contact with us, to report issues to us. We are here to listen, to understand, and we will do all that we can to make sure that we provide the level of support to victims to investigate any allegations in an effective manner, and to do everything that we can to bring offenders to justice and protect the public from harm. That's our mission. That's what we're here to do, and that is absolutely what I would want victims to do. Please come forward and tell us.
No, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the overview that you've shared with us. Thank you.
Thank you.